So, The Promise of a Pencil is the book I chose to read for the independent part of this class. On the surface, it's about the creation of this NGO, this not-for-profit international organization whose role is to fund the building of new schools in extremely impoverished areas of developing countries. It ends up being much more than this cut and dry, this is how I did it, this is how successful I am, this is what works kind of instruction booklet. The author, Adam Braun, is the founder of Pencils of Promise, and he leads his readers through a very intuitive and deep learning curve on life in general. He's very honest with his mistakes and the problems he is faced with in his own life, as well as with the organization that he was so passionate about. He's very open with the big decisions he had to make and all the backlash he received because of his final choices. And then he is eventually very excited about all of the successes, but it's more excitement in how many people he brought in with him and how many people that he was able to reach out to. That's how his organization grew, because of this lifestyle he chose to live, because of how many people he was able to infect with this excitement and passion he had. Also, he was very honest about how to help people, because there is an incorrect way and a correct way to help people. You can't successfully help someone until you understand what they truly need, and they understand better their necessities than you do. It's something that I think many of us don't understand, and that's why many organizations that have had the best of intentions fail. In this sense, the book and the author really stood out to me. It really impressed upon me that the smallest understandings and the smallest details make all the difference in these kinds of endeavors. And these kinds of endeavors are what can help reduce the amount of social issues we have in this world and can help solve a lot of the world's very serious problems. I kind of have 3 or 4 quick ideas and themes that I saw repeated throughout the book that I'd like to talk with you guys that really stood out to me that I'd like to talk with you guys about. And I didn't expect them to be made in such a book, but in fact they were the most important points made, I think. So the first one is this: ensuring a sense of ownership and increased commitment in what you're building for people that need help. Adam was diligent in making sure that the people in the communities he was building schools for had a hand in the construction and the development. He held them to several standards which were important to the success of the school, the community, and the organization. At one point, a local woman on his team interrupted this very important male diplomat that was speaking right before one of the groundbreakings of the new school. He began asking for more help, and she stood up and said that this was a gift, not a handout, and it would take the efforts and the investment of the entire community to make this gift the most successful it could be. At that point, the community was now committed to making sure the school didn't fail. It wasn't simply the organization giving them this, and then they became dependent on these handouts, which is incredibly important to eradicating this specific social issue of poverty and in every sense, not just education. Secondly, Adam made a point that people focus on the perpetrator and the victim when trying to figure out how a conflict may have been avoided completely, when the greatest opportunity, he said, actually exists within the role of the bystander, the person who neither benefits nor gains from the event itself. This stood out to me because of the mindset that many of us have. We tend to point fingers, place the blame, and pass judgment while never looking to ourselves to change things. I've come to understand that a lot of social issues we still confront and have to face every day exist because we haven't taken action against them in a way that includes ourselves changing our everyday lives in order to eradicate them. And so that's become an extremely important point for me. Adam quoted a woman he met while he was eating dinner at a very small local restaurant in Laos. And she said, "A stranger is just a friend I haven't met yet." This, for me, translates to a powerful perspective that one has on life, one that allowed him Adam, not to just meet, but to build relationships with people that would eventually help the success of his organization in major ways and take his mission to completely new heights. It's also a powerful statement on how one handles adversity and change. And it's quite obvious for me, but then not quite so obvious, that many social issues we are dealing with are directly because of people's inability to accept change in a positive light. So that very simple statement makes a lot of sense to me. And I think understanding the problem, understanding how these social issues come about is 100% necessary before even beginning to figure out and understand how to eradicate social issues. And yeah. Finally, one of Adam's mantras is stay guided by your values, not by your necessities. For him, this meant giving up certain benefits to continue to work with Pencils of Promise, because he had the opportunity to take much more high-paying jobs. One of the biggest things is that he went straight to Wall Street. He's doing and worked for one of the biggest companies. He was giving all of these opportunities during the downfall of our economy, and for him to say no to all this, people thought he was crazy. He had to face a lot of big decisions because he had to support himself. So this turned into one of his mantras. Because he had to make decisions. He had to choose between making a lot of money and working for this NGO that he had started from scratch. In a broader sense, I believe it can be applied to every person's life, whether they are active in an NGO or not. If one forces oneself to be guided by their values, then it forces them to first establish those values. After establishing their values and living by these values, the values thus become their true necessities, not everything superficial that we tend to view as needs. And I don't think that you can start to change the rest of the world until you get your own values in line. So I think that's very important. And he definitely made that point several times, and it came across bright and clear in all of his writing. And it's very impressive that he was able to do that through all of this intense decision-making that he had to do. But for him, it made things easier. And it was a struggle at first to establish those values and those morals, but once he did, things started to fall into line. In closing, I found this book, Adam's Story, applicable in many areas of my life. Its messages were written in such a way that they blended with many of the core discussions I have had during this class and evoked many of the same feelings of hope, epiphany, clarity, and excitement. Adam said, "What you see around you is proof of what exists within you." And throughout this course, I've seen the immense benefit of seeing what is around me, be it the topics that we educated ourselves on, or the discussions we have had with one another, or the thoughts that all of you have expressed. I really enjoyed and appreciated Adam's approach with this book, and I'm very glad I read it at the end of this course, as I was able to apply it to the previous discussions and readings, kind of tying everything together. One of my favorite phrases, and a line from one of Adam's presenters, actually, is, "If you think education is expensive, try ignorance." All of our readings, including my individual choice, have proven that true over and over. The best we can do is take what we've learned in our readings and spread that knowledge to others, so that with ignorance, social issues too can be wiped out. I really enjoyed reading this book. I really enjoyed this entire class with you guys. Thanks for listening. I know this has been a long post, but I really wanted to do a video rather than writing everything out. So thanks for hanging with me.